Okay, so let's talk about burnout. Now, this is one of those topics that I think so many people vastly underestimate. Lots of people, they recognize when they're burnout, and almost everybody I know has experienced burnout at some point. But what I'm going to explain in here is that more than often people are burnt out before they actually recognize it. And unfortunately, they seem to wait until their symptoms of burnout are off the charts before they actually take any action and do anything about it. Which brings me to now what I call the spectrum of burnout, which, as you can see, has a progressional process before you actually hit the higher end of being burnout. But what I'm going to describe in here is all the different stages that people typically go through before they actually hit the red zone, which is normally when people actually take action to do anything about it. So I don't want this to be a long video. I want it to be quite succinct and fairly short, but I just do want to capture the points that I think are really important. So at the lower end of burnout, you have this green zone here. And what's significant about the green zone is that these are where you'll see what I've written here, sporadic warning signs. You're not really burnt out when you're in the green zone, but you might start seeing some areas you think, oh, okay, if this keeps on happening, I'm really going to struggle. This is going to be potentially on the verge of a slippery slope or the thin end of a thick wedge, as I've designed here. So here isn't really much to worry about, but that's the signs when you think, okay, this is happening a little bit and it's a bit sporadic, but if this becomes a bit more frequent and this carries on happening more and more, I'm going to start heading into dangerous territory. Now, as you might have noticed, I don't have an amber pen, so I've done this bit in blue. But when you start getting to the cusp of where the green meets the blue, what people start experiencing at this point is this strong desire to prove themselves, this overwhelming sense of needing validation from whatever they're doing, whether it's a project or something that they're trying to chase, maybe it's a promotion or a pay rise or a bonus, but they kind of get consumed in this thought process that I really have to prove myself. And then as a result, you'll start seeing signs that people typically start compromising on themselves. They're not really looking after themselves in the same way. They're not actively going to the gym quite as often, or maybe they're just spending a little bit more time working. And you're kind of on the lower end of the danger zone when you start heading into this territory. Following that, you start creeping up here and you start feeling like you're trapped at work, almost like, if I'm going to be really blunt, it can feel like a bit of a victimhood. So I can't believe work has given me all this work. I have to do it. That's another thing I hear. I've got no choice. I have to do it. And very often people start getting irritated and frustrated at other people or other things, like basically everything is happening to them, as opposed to stepping into their power and having the control themselves. So they can feel quite victim-based, and often they can be quite blamey around what other people are doing to them and what their business is doing to them. As people start creeping up around this kind of stage, people's priorities start changing a little bit. What used to be important to them isn't as important to them because they're so consumed by work. So that would include things like spending time with your family, hobbies, interests, things that you like to look into just out of curiosity. Everything just kind of falls by the wayside because priorities seem to have taken a significant shift, because fundamentally everything now is work, 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 and achieve, and got to get everything that I'm doing over a particular line, or get a particular result, basically. Now, this is where it starts getting interesting, because round about this stage, before it starts getting really bad, probably around the middle area of the zone of the, what I would still call the danger zone, when you're in the amber, or in this case, the blue, people start recognizing as this is just the norm. This is just what people do. So you'll start noticing other behaviors at work, maybe that you're working really long hours, maybe you're working before you go to work, as in getting up, doing your emails, then driving to the office. And then normally at work, people are feeling very, very stressed. They're bouncing from one meeting and then going straight into another meeting, straight into another meeting, straight into another meeting, having absolutely no time for their brain to start refreshing and actually process what they've actually spoken about in the previous meeting, because they're straight into another one and they have to start it all again. So your brain is just literally firing on all cylinders all the time. And then people then don't get any time to do the email. They often then start doing the emails at 5:36 and often go home and carry on doing the emails as well. And often people have spent so long in this period of time here that they start recognizing it as just the norm, because this has just been such a gradual process that if you jump from here to here overnight, it would be really noticeable. But more than often, this is a gradual process, and we start associating it as the norm, almost like we can barely remember the last time we just had a normal day at work before we ended up having to work till 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night just to get through the work that we have. Round about here, which I've started shading with the amber, and you're heading into the red. is when you start withdrawing from yourself. You start withdrawing from your friends and family. This is when you almost stop even feeling much. You start feeling a bit numb, and all you can think about is getting work done. And it often comes with a very high level of stress. So you can kind of recognize a faster heart rate. You can start recognizing anxiety and agitation, maybe a little bit of sleep loss. But here, by this point, you really are beginning to start feeling the weight as if you're beginning to feel very burdened. Now, in my opinion, people are already in the stage of burnout at this stage. They start recognizing this as the norm. And again, this carries on for an even further period of time along here, however long that may last for. They're living in a place of burnout. Now, they're not absolutely crippled on their knees yet, but they still really need a rest. When you're in the red zone, you start getting symptoms like loss of memory, maybe you feel very irritable, you've basically lost touch with a lot of people that maybe you're previously spending time with that you actually really want to see, but you're just not giving yourself the permission to see them because you're spending so much time at work. More than often, people start having a loss of confidence, sometimes a level of self-loathing because they just feel, is this it? Is this all I stand for? I just go to work, come back, and I'm just chasing this achievement-based lifestyle. People often feel very demotivated. They feel flat, as if they don't even really recognize themselves anymore. They can often be very self-critical, and they can have things like the inability to make simple decisions that previously would have been really straightforward for them. So, in my opinion, and of course, people can disagree with this, but all of this level here to here, you're in burnout. This is a very uncomfortable place to be, and this is before you even hit to the really crippling stage. If people are there, they need to rest. All this process will be giving you warning signs that you're not paying attention to what your body needs. You're not listening to the signs that they're saying slow down. You're not listening to the signs of like rein it in a little bit. Actually take some pressure off yourself, hand some work out, whatever it takes. But more than often, people ignore the warning signs. And the thing is with the body, it's very powerful, and your body will always win. It's very similar to if you're thirsty, your body will tell you that you need some water. If you're hungry, your body's telling you that you need some food. If your bladder's bursting, your body's telling you that you need to go to the loo. Whatever it takes, your body is communicating with you all the time. But more than often, we ignore the warning signs here. And now come to think of it, we ignore the warning signs here as well. But this is still in the high level of amber, and you start creeping up. I still believe that you're in burnout when you're at the high level of the amber zone, or in my case, the blue zone, when you're here. This is the point when you think, okay, I really, really need to take my foot off the gas a little bit before it's too late. Because I can assure you, when you reach the red zone, you are absolutely on your knees. Very similar signs and symptoms of burnout when you've hit this red zone is very similar to depression. People often find that they can't get out of bed. People often find that they're completely demotivated. People often find that they're completely numb emotionally. They've forgotten what joy feels like. And in fact, the only thing that they really recognize is anxiety and stress. People were already previously withdrawn here. People already previously had a loss of memory here. People already previously had a difficulty in making decisions when we're at this stage. By the time we're here, there's an inability to do any of those things. There's an inability to remember anything. There's an inability to make any decisions. And fundamentally, when you're here, you're really in a bad place. Now, a lot of people seem to think that only when they have the symptoms of the red zone that they can barely get out of bed and they just feel like a zombie, oh, I'm burnt out. That is because they've been ignoring all of this. I mean, right down to the tail end of it, there will have been warning signs of like, oh, this is happening more and more. I need to pay attention to this. Then it starts becoming a bit more common, a bit more frequent, a bit more of the norm, and it creeps up. This is the zone when you think, I'm on a slippery slope here. I need to pay attention to what's going on because this is not going to end well unless I start taking some action and making some changes. Then people hit burnout, but a level that's still significant, but it's still going to start creeping up and up and up because they're still doing the things that they were doing down here. This is just being either increased in terms of more frequency, in terms of the work that they've got or the things that they're doing or the hours that they're working, and it's been going on for a longer time. This only ends in one way unless people make a change. By the time you get to this point, it's game over. Like you're completely incapacitated. You're not able to work at all. Now, if I had to use an analogy for this, imagine if you were a sports player, say a footballer. The green zone down here had a slight twinge in your ankle, and you think, do you know what, it's a slight twinge, but actually it's not that bad, and I'm only getting a bit of pain probably every, 20 minutes or whatever, and then it's gone again. But I'm going to keep my eye on it just in case. That would be like the green zone. By the time you get into this zone here, you're talking about, let's think of, say, a sprained ankle, and the severity of the sprained ankle will depend on this. Now, some people just roll an ankle and they can run it off, and then maybe they just need to play the game, put a bandage on it, and they can still carry on playing the game. However, some people roll an ankle really badly, and when they start rolling it badly up here, they really need to go off. They're not really able to run, but some people still choose to play on with a big, bad sprained ankle, and actually what they do is just injure themselves further. So this would be like having a really bad sprained ankle. By the time you're getting up to here, it's almost similar to having your leg broken or having your leg chopped off or something. Like, this would make it absolutely impossible to carry on playing that sport. So if you imagine that analogy based on a mindset place, it's exactly the same thing. And unfortunately, what I find in the world is that people seem to think that they can just push through this bit. They can just keep on going, and they can ignore the warning signs because that's just what they do, and almost sometimes give themselves a bit of a badge of honor because how tough they are and how strong they are. But actually, they're just only heading in one direction. That's normally to disaster, unless there's a point where they actually physically stop doing these behaviors. By the time you get to here, guys, it's not good. So if nothing more from this video, guys, I want you to start looking at this and start recognizing your own signs. What is it for you? Are you start seeing the very, very slight warning signs? Or are you already in this banding here when you see, actually, I'm heading for a bad place here and I need to do something about it before it gets very, very uncomfortable? Or are you just kind of living in this world that you've just normalized everything and you've lost yourself, you've withdrawn within yourself, you're not spending as much time with your friends, you're feeling quite low, you've lost your confidence, you're not motivated, you can't find that spark again, you seem to think that just pushing through is going to make it. Do not wait until you get to this stage before you pay attention to it, because your body has been screaming out to you for a long time that you need to start paying attention. And if you're at this stage, you haven't been listening. So I hope that was helpful. Look at your own body, look at your own symptoms, look at your own signs, listen to what your body is telling you, and for the love of God, stop yourself from getting to this stage because it's really uncomfortable. If you have any questions at all, do not hesitate to contact me on info@angiemcquillan.com. And other than that, I hope you enjoyed it. Cheers.